All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the first ever YP Connection. I'm Matt Campbell, Director of Client Services at the Baltimore Convention Center. I'm also the Young Professionals Chair for IAVM. For those of you watching on Google Plus or watching archived on YouTube, I hope that you like what you see and opt to join us in the Hangout for our next session. We'll attempt to do these every quarter, so I look forward to meeting all of you. For those of you in the Hangout right now, thank you for being here, and we will introduce you very shortly. The goal of the Young Professionals Committee is to continue to find ways to add value to both the student membership and the YP membership base. Over a year ago, we came up with this idea, and we kicked the tires around, and we're finally here. I'd like to thank quickly IAVM for allowing us to give this a shot. Specifically, Greg Wolf, Bill Jenkins, and Gina Bryson for helping to facilitate all the back-of-house stuff. My committee over the last year has been imperative in making this dream of mine come a reality, and so specifically I'd like to thank Eric Story, Jennifer Schonhoff, and Saru Majarian, who have kept me on task. So now with all that housekeeping out of the way, while our guest doesn't remember this, in 2009, my IAVM mentor, Terry Genovese, sent an email to look for this rookie venue manager from a nonprofit performing arts center while he was teaching venue management school at Ogilvy. When I approached, he took the time to talk to me after his class, and I could instantly tell that his active listening and inquiring mindset, he legitimately cared about my perspective, how I could be involved in IAVM, what I have to give back, and I couldn't have asked for a more appropriate mindset in a person to be the first guest for the YP Connection. So with that said, John Siehl, CFE, is the Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for VenuWorks, a venue management company of almost 50 unique different venues across North America. Prior to that, John spent many years at the Nutter Center, the 10,400-seat arena at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. And as a member of IAVM for over 38 years, Siehl served as the chairman of the board of directors from 2010-2011, has been a long-standing faculty member at Venue Management School, and is the current chair for the Academy of Venue Safety and Security, otherwise known as AVSS. John, thank you very much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
In addition to John, we have a few IAVM members in the room with us today, and I'd like to give them a chance to introduce themselves to you, starting with Jennifer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Schonhoff. I'm an Event and Exhibitor Services Manager at the St. Charles Convention Center, which is managed by Spectra Venue Management.
And Julie?
My name is Julie Gomez. I'm the Operations Supervisor for the Bridgeview Center in Ottumwa, Iowa, which is managed by VenuWorks.
And Matthew?
I'm Matthew Boring. I'm at the Leeds Center in Lincoln, Nebraska, on the campus of the University of Nebraska.
And last but certainly not least, Mike.
Hi, my name is Mike Santa. I'm the General Manager of Indiana University Event Services in Bloomington, Indiana.
All right, thank you all for joining us, and for the millions in watching around the world, you're in for a fun next 45 minutes or so. The way this is going to work is we are going to bounce back and forth between our panelists asking questions to John, and any follow-up questions that might come organically will go immediately following. As this is a great opportunity to have conversation, I've encouraged John to ask any questions that he may have as we go through, because it's all about learning from each other, not just from him. But with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer.
Hi. So my first question is, do you provide risk management information to vendors in the pre-event planning process? And also, what kinds of new topic areas are being included in your risk management plan?
Good question. Good question. Typically, we would provide risk management information to the vendors, anybody coming into the building, so that they know what our policies and procedures are. Related to that, it's very important to have those policies and those procedures in writing. I would say on your website, so that emphasize always that safety of the patron, safety of the client, and staff is of the utmost important in our whole process as we plan events. We want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. We want to make sure that whatever our internal procedures are well known to the vendors as they come in, whether it's a promoter, a show, or just your everyday vendor coming in for some kind of repair, delivery, or whatever. They need to know what your policies are and how to adhere to those and what that really means as you interact with them. So yeah, we want to let them know what's going on, what the expectations are, get that word out to them ahead of time, especially if it's a contractor going to be doing some work in your facility. Make sure that they know what the guidelines and the parameters are, and probably best to put that in writing out to them. And I'm going to have to take a note here or two, because I just forgot the second part of that question.
Oh, what kinds of new topic areas are you now including in risk management plans? Any new topics?
New topics. I'm not sure that there's any new topics that have cropped up, short of anything related to technology and internet. Everything that we really focus on is tried and true. Everything that we really focus on is specifically related to interaction of the public and clients with staff and the facility to make sure that everybody's safe. So I'm not sure there's too much new in the world, although in my world, going back 38 or 40 years, technology is pretty darn new. So I would say that keeping up with technology, keeping up with the technological policies, procedures of the facility, and how that affects who may come in and how they may do their business in the facility is very important. Another aspect related to risk management, and I suspect we'll get into this a little bit later, but the situation related to concealed carry or open carry laws, ordinances, and statutes around the country, which are tremendously diverse. It's important for everybody to know what your policies and codes are as they come into your facility. So that's really come to the forefront in the last 3 or 4 years as a heightened point of discussion.
Thank you.
John, I know as a brief follow-up, I know you are not with Live Nation, but you and I were speaking yesterday about how since the Paris attacks, there's been additions to Live Nation's technical writers. Could you speak briefly on that?
Well, the addition to the rider, and whether that's a mandate, a suggestion, or what, I think that's the jury's still out on that. The situation relates to metal detectors or magnetometers for all public entrances at Live Nation events. Now I think if you read that recommendation to the letter, it really suggests that walk-through magnetometers are the best. They are quite expensive, and they are proving to be a challenge. For one thing, there are very, very few facilities related to the thousands that belong to IAVM that have the magnetometers on hand. Much easier to get a hold of a handheld wand, that type of thing, to fulfill that requirement. And again, that needs to be done in connection and in conversation with the Live Nation Center. There are circumstances that may not deem themselves necessary for magnetometers, and maybe a random use of magnetometers as you go through the entry process. So I think that rule, regulation, suggestion, or conversation is pretty new to the world, and we at VenuWorks have not fully digested that at this point, but we're taking a look at it, see how we can comply, and certainly in everybody's benefit to comply. And I think more than that, probably one of the best for any piece or part of the public as they come into the facility is getting the word out ahead of time as to what your acceptable policies and procedures are. So if you publish those, you have the proper stuff, that goes a long way to deterring trying to bring something into the facility. And again, as I said, we're at VenuWorks, we're still trying to digest. Actually, we're in discussions with our insurance company right now, and that is a major part of the discussion.
All right, thank you very much. Certainly a trend to continue to follow, as it will affect all of us if it hasn't already. I want to throw the microphone, as it were, over to Mike for the next question.
Yeah, Don, you mentioned in that last response about expenses and to walk through mags and how expensive those can be. My question's along similar lines, and it's more of a general philosophy type question. And how do you balance the expenses that security can go, whether that be staffing or walk through mags or the technology that goes along with things, cameras and other things, with what's an acceptable level of risk when you're trying to balance finances and having the proper security at an event?
That's a very good question again also. Expense should never stop you from doing what's right. Doing what's right is different in all circumstances and venues where you may have a need or a requirement in one venue. It may not be applicable in another one. So I would never hesitate to implement a security policy or procedure to save money. Now that gets back to the very basic question of who pays the bill, and that's a conversation that typically is a three-way conversation. What you're looking at in almost every scenario is the owner of the building, the management, whether it's private management or you are working for the facility owner directly, and the promoter or the client that's coming in. And having that active conversation related to who is going to pay the bill, where we draw the lines, what are the acceptable risks, is an active conversation that someone needs to have. And frankly, it's an uncomfortable conversation sometimes because we have expectations either internally or from a promoter that don't always match and don't always jive with what we want to do. So having that active conversation to decide what is the acceptable level of risk, what is the history coming in, does it really full-blown magnifying, searching everybody? Is it enough to advertise and put public service announcements that there will be random searches? Sometimes random searches can be as effective because that gets into what we call in the security world hardening the facility. And frankly, if the bad guy thinks that you have everything covered and you are going to do random searches, the bad guy, he's going to be less likely to target your facility because he never knows exactly what is going to happen as we approach the entry doors. So you've got the security companies again that have an opinion. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has history. Everybody has practices and best practices and policies, procedures that are in place. I have had over my career promoters say they don't want to have the expense. Here's what I'm going to pay for it. I think that has lessened. It was really strong back in the 80s and 90s that they were only going to pay for so much, and if you wanted to have more, you paid for it yourself. Well, if I deemed it necessary, I always ate it out of my profits out of the show. And that is directly related to a liability situation that says, if you know this and you don't do this, and you suspect that this may happen, you don't take every procedure and step that you can to prevent it, then at the end of the day, when you're sitting on a witness stand somewhere and the big bad lawyer says, why didn't you do this? You don't have to fall back on the excuse and say, well, I didn't want to spend the money. It comes down to life, what is injury worth, and it's definitely that you want to take. So going the extra mile is my general accepted policy, even if it has to come out of the facility budget per se or the show net proceeds, if there is a disagreement between promoter, client, and the facility itself.
Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So that's a perfect segue. I want to segue now. Having gone through at least 1 year of AVSS, I know I have, to your point, there are some skills that are being taught by IAVM, and I know Julie has a question about that, so I'm going to throw it to her.
Thank you.
Hold on, Julie, you're muted 1 second, and go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, not a problem. So, John, I know you're currently the chair of AVSS. So what does that program mean to you and to all the young professionals that are listening? When would you recommend them attending AVSS?
Well, I'll start with the first part, and I'll make a note over here. It really opened my eyes. I went to the very first year of AVSS. I, frankly, have always tried to be on the cutting edge of whatever is new out there, especially products and seminars, schools from IAVM. I've tried to make it my job to get the knowledge that is necessary to be the very best that I can be. So as I attended the first and second years of AVSS, I became very much aware that even after 30 years in the business, essentially, that I was still relatively uneducated as to probably the appropriate crowd management techniques, appropriate planning and preparing. Not that I had done anything wrong, but what it really taught me was how much more I could do that was right. And I think that has added to my skills and in turn added to the skills down the line. So being connected with AVSS from day number one, and I remained connected in year number 3, I joined as faculty. So I remained because it became apparent to me that this focused on probably the absolute most important thing that we as the industry do. There is nothing more important than the safety and security of our guests, our clients, and our staff. That's job one. If we do not provide a safe place for our employees to work in, if we don't provide a safe and entertaining place for the public to visit and receive whether it's entertainment or education that they're looking for, and if our facilities are not seen as a safe facility, we're not going to have the business. The public's not going to come. The client are not going to come. I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned early on at AVSS was, and it really harkens back to one of the very, very basic customer service tenets that says you can have 100 really happy customers, but you really upset one person, that word is going to expand in multiples that are just incredible and damage your reputation. Same thing really goes for hosting events and having successful events in your facility. You can focus on years and years of successful events and host hundreds of thousands of people and not harm anyone and have a top-notch reputation. But the one time that you let your guard down, whether on purpose or, very frankly, accidents do happen. So either by some negligence, which is really bad, or a pure accident, the one incident that might happen to you and or your facility can damage your career, can damage your reputation of the facility, can damage the facility's reputation within the city, and all of that will, and I guarantee it will, restrict the number of people that come to your facility. Now, you can fight to get that reputation back, but as in a bad customer service experience, it may take years to get your reputation back after one bad experience. So AVSS from the frankly, the very first class that I attended that very first year showed me that it was of the utmost importance to do anything and everything that you could to provide a safe and secure environment for your guests. Next on the list would be to hope they have a good time and become educated, or they just have the time that they're expecting. But there is nothing more important than providing the safe and secure environment.
All right. Julie, as I unmute you, any follow-ups on that?
No, I just wanted to ask you also, when would you recommend a young professional to attend AVSS?
Well, there's a couple constraints there, and again, I hate to roll it back to money, but budget constraints are a big thing. My very frank opinion would be as absolutely soon as possible as you join the mid-level ranks of management in a facility, to get that background and be able to take that background back to the facility. Now, that can be mitigated if there are other management staff in the facility that have already taken advantage of AVSS and or other safety and security training. Certainly, that can be an internal training situation that can share some policies and practices with you. But if there's nobody in your facility that has been to AVSS, nobody specifically trained to handle crowds in a crowd management situation scenario, even at the very basic route, going to venue management school and going through the couple courses we have at venue management school related to crowd management and security operations, etc. It's of the utmost importance for every facility to have someone with that background so they can go back, they can help educate, and that becomes a duty. And as you get out of year one or year two of AVSS, or even year one or year two of venue management school, I think everybody that's had courses taught by me will find out that there is a responsibility that you carry once you have that knowledge in your head. You are carrying the ability and the responsibility to share that knowledge just as far and wide as you can to make sure your facilities are safe. That's your due diligence. That's your responsibility. When you have the knowledge, it's yours to go back and share. Do your absolute best to implement policy and procedure that are going to ensure the safety and security of the patrons.
And a quick plug, and as I unlock this so you can see who's talking, I'm also being the director as we talk, so I apologize. One of the things I moonlight as is a regional board member for Region 1 within IAVM, and I would encourage Julia, you along with anybody, to reach out to your regional board and look for scholarship opportunities there, as well as with the IAVM Foundation, because there's a lot of money floating around for those that really want to take advantage of those opportunities. So I know I was a scholarship recipient for venue management school, and I wouldn't have been able to go any other way, and I equate year one and year two of venue management school to one of the most important experiences of my career to date. So don't leave any money on the table whenever possible. So, yeah.
Matt, can I add to that VenuWorks does offer a scholarship or two also, and I believe Spectra does also. So it's good for everybody to check all those resources. I know a number of regions have the scholarships available, and as you get into that, there are scholarships available even at venue management school for the Graduate Institute through the institute itself. So certainly do your homework and find all those resources that are out there that can help you get to one school or the other.
We all tend to get kind of inundated with emails and tend to skim them or just automatically delete them. I know one of our biggest challenges is our read rate on our emails are pretty low from Region 1 because of so many emails coming out all the time. So the one thing I would encourage everybody to do is when you see something from IAVM, at least open it up, take a look, because that's going to be one point of where we advertise those scholarships. So make sure you read from top to bottom. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Matthew.
Hi, John. I know a lot of your career has been just at a couple organizations, some large venues, and it seems like there's a lot of younger, venue managers, especially, assistant general managers and things like that, who have been in 5 venues or 10 venues. Do you think it's more important today to have experience at a diversity of venues, or does it really, more depend on the type of venues you want to work in?
I personally think that, well, I'll drift back to my career because it certainly was at 2 very specific venues for 45 years total. But you got to know those venues and know what they had to offer. The first one was a 5,000-seat arena with 160,000 square feet of convention space and our internal food service. So that gave me a lot of experience. Second one was a almost 11,000-seat arena with a lot of meeting space and an attached gymnasium. So that gave me some more experience. I think more than anything, the key is to explore different roles within the facilities that you're in. And sometimes the best way to get that is by hopping around different facilities. And I see nothing wrong with that, although I do have some very good people that I don't want to see hop around facilities because I want to keep them. But I have always been a proponent of job shadowing within facilities themselves. Virtually every segment of our industry has what we might call downtimes. In the arena business, it's usually in the summertime because a lot of that entertainment goes outside. Convention business, you have ebbs and flows, and you get to holiday season or something, there's not as much going on. Those are perfect times to go job shadow a counterpart and figure out exactly what their job is. And that gains you the experience in a couple different modes, gains you the experience and understanding of what they do. Plus it also gets you enough experience to help you with either the CVP designation that's just rolled out this year, or the CFE. Both are very comprehensive to all types of facilities and take knowledge of all types of facilities and positions within the facilities. So if you diversify what you do, if you have active conversations with your cohorts and your colleagues within your own facility or other facilities, the networking is so very important, either within your own facility or other facilities. Find out about what other jobs do. I'm going to give a little story here, and I tell stories a lot. At my last job at the Nutter Center at Wright State University, our box office was physically divorced from everybody else. So our box office manager and assistant manager existed 400 feet up at the front of the building, and we all lived in what they saw as very plush offices in the back of the building. And I had, about probably 15 years ago now, a number of my staff really coming to me and saying, well, what do those people do every day? They're up there, we never see them, we never talk to them, and I just, I think I work a whole lot harder than them, is exactly what a couple people said. And they came to me with that because they wanted more money. In the end, I helped them understand that the importance of the box office and the roles. But what we did some job flipping for a while as we went into the summer. I sent marketing up to the box office to work for 4 weeks, and I brought a box office assistant back to help with marketing, and we did the same thing with operations and front of house, etc. So we had a very comprehensive job swap going on for about 4 months during a slow time, which really gave everybody the full awareness of what the other jobs and their roles were. And honestly, it showed the employees that worked in the administrative office that it wasn't so peachy up in the box office, that it was at times very dull and routine, but at times it was very challenging because you're dealing as the first person dealing with the public, and the public in a customer service stance can be very difficult. at times. So it's very important to diversify your knowledge of all roles in a facility. I don't think hopping jobs is a bad thing. I do know that the older generations, I speak very frankly, the older generations look at job hopping very carefully and wonder why it is sometimes if there's less than 2 or 3 years spent at a job. And that, if indeed that's something that you or anybody has done, a good, concise, honest explanation for that would be very good to have at your fingertips if you go into another role. And if it is just looking to better yourself, more power to you. But sometimes, very frankly, it's seen as a non-compatibility situation. And if I do have a colleague that I know has been in 12 different roles in 15 years. I would look at that as, I'm not sure that I would hire that person. Even on the surface, they appear to be very good. For one thing, you spend a lot of money training them to your policies, your procedures, the way you need to get your business done. And if they're going to pack up and walk out after a year just looking for the greener grass, I'm not sure I want to spend the time on them. So I think, honestly, spending 2 or 3 years in a spot is pretty crucial and is seen as a very effective way to work your career. But just as much as that, when you're in those roles for 2 or 3 years, expand your knowledge base from networking with other facilities or networking with your own colleagues in your own facility. Find out as much as you can, because you need all that information for CVP and the CFE designations.
Any follow-up?
Well, yeah, I think you made a great point about kind of the job flipping. We've even done that with some of our marketing or fundraising staff with ticket office, so that they understand, hey, the reason that I need you to track this exactly in this spot is because this is where I'm looking at it. And also for the marketing staff to see, how does this look like? Can I present it in a more clear, concise way that the front, kind of the front ticket office agent can relate to and understand more clearly?
I think it's really crucial that everybody understands the role of everybody else and the hurdles that they have to jump through. I can frankly say that I have worked virtually every job in convention centers and arenas, from janitor all the way up to the top end, and they are all unique and all incredibly valuable, and we cannot operate without any of them. But they all have the quirks and unique approaches that need to be handled very carefully to make that job function, and they all roll up to making a successful facility and adding to your successful career.
Good, Mike? Or Matthew, rather?
Yeah, that was great.
All right. Then the next kind of a follow-up, as we're talking about careers, both Mike and Jennifer had similar questions, so I'm going to defer to you, Jennifer, if you would. You've got a question about, I guess, young professionals in security.
Yeah. What advice would you give a young or new event professional regarding risk management?
Regarding what now?
Risks. Avoiding risk.
Avoiding risk. Short answer is do your job, but the longer answer is figuring out what that job is. There are risks related to everything, and this really ties back into the previous answer. Every job is so very important, and what I teach specifically at crowd management, my crowd management course at Venue Management School, is that everybody is responsible. Everybody has a role in crowd management. Everybody has a role in customer service. Everybody has a role in risk management, from the fact that whether there are 5 employees plus your part-timers, or 25 employees plus your part-timers, or 100 plus part-timers, all of those have eyes on the situation. Everybody should be aware of what the risks are out there. And this goes back to the simplest: did somebody forget to tape a cord, an extension cord down going across a walkway? Or did somebody with a show, after the show was all set up, run an extra mic cable to the sound mix location and didn't put it in the cable tray? We are all responsible for that. We are all responsible to note wet floors, slippery situations, and get help or fix the situation yourself. So I think risk is everybody's responsibility, and risk is our responsibility as we walk in the door, whether it's an event day or it's a dark day. Accidents do happen. We at VenuWorks are going through a very comprehensive workers' compensation review right at this moment, and everybody's going to get a little more information on that soon for you, those who might work for us. But workers' compensation, over half of our workers' compensation claims come from dark days. That's a big problem. And as most of you know, probably you have, with very few exceptions, you have about an equal number of dark days as you do event days in round numbers. So it's very important to make sure that safety and security, the proper procedures are followed day in, day out, whether it's related to step ladders, extension cords, fire extinguishers being charged, everything, to make sure that inspections are done and that the environment is safe for your fellow employees. And that is not just the responsibility of the safety committee in a building or the security personnel in the building or the operations manager and director. It's the responsibility of everybody from the executive director down to the janitor to make sure that there's a safe environment for everybody 24/7, 365 days a year. So no risk. I don't like to see any risk, and my eyes are always wide open to risk. And that's, I'll go back to the very first answer. From when I returned from the very first AVSS that I went to that week long, and just out of curiosity, I watched a number of things in my own facility where I thought we did things really well, and there were two blatant hazards that I let go for 5 days, watched them day in, day out, within 50 feet of the administrative office, that nobody addressed. And I watched them just out of curiosity to see how long it would be before somebody addressed that. And then we changed the way we did business. So nothing is acceptable. I don't accept any risk. And it's our job to make sure that we don't.
I think you dropped the mic. Good answer. Mike Santa, if you would like to, a slight variation on that last question, your other question?
Yeah, I think we've touched on this just a little bit, but is there any additional things that, you know, a YP like us here in this conversation can do if we're interested in this field with event security and safety and crowd management and things like this, besides some of the, you know, AVSS and VMS and some of those tools that we have? Are there other practical things that we can do on a daily basis to kind of help further our careers?
Absolutely, absolutely. A couple of them, I'm going to make a couple notes here though, and so I don't forget anything. Get in touch with and get to know your first responders. Get to know the police and the security that come in your building. And that's good for everybody in the facility. You don't want first responders, the first time they come into your facility, to be an emergency where they have to react and don't know where they're being called to. So invite them in and encourage your operational, your executive directors to invite them in for training purposes so they get to know the facility. That also lets you, and you being all of the staff as well as all young professionals, get to know them. The more interaction you have and the more networking you can do with anybody in the industry, the better off you're going to be. I was talking to Mac yesterday. I've learned far more by asking a probing question and then shutting my mouth than I ever did by rambling on as I like to do. So I've learned to listen very well, and you can do the same thing. Talk to your firemen. They come out to your events. They wander around. You might have a fire watch person. Make it your business to go around and talk to them, get to know them. Your first responders, your police that are going to show up, your paramedics, etc. Get to know them. That's a real essential way that you can expand your horizons about what they're looking for and what their jobs are and what their roles are too. And that really rolls back into the risk management situation. You know, you could say to maybe you got an off-duty policeman working security at a concert, and he might be stuck at a fire door and everything's quiet. Go up to him and say, what's the biggest thing you see here? What's the biggest challenge you see that we have? And get their side of the story. There's always another view. And sometimes we're so close to it that we don't see all of that. So expand your horizons by tapping into the horizons of somebody else. Additionally, you can go, there are just, I can't say a million resources online, but there probably are. There are a lot of resources online that you can go and do online training. NIMS, the National Incident Management System, NIMS, has probably 100 courses that you can take online that will heighten your awareness of risk acceptance, risk analysis, preparation, security operations, emergency planning. There are too many to mention about what's out there. You can go online, you look on my wall behind me, all kinds of certificates up there. You too can have a certificate, or 2 or 10 or 20. But go online. The NIMS online information is as good as any as I have ever seen. And as you search NIMS, you're going to come across other things. There's NCS4, which is a series of courses out of the University of Southern Mississippi that you can tap into. I don't know what their specific online resources are, but I think they have some. So I'm sure if you just Google NCS4, you'll come up with something. And you can go as in-depth as Googling ADA toolbox. ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, is something that we don't pay enough attention to. It is a tremendous liability and risk in all of our facilities. So go Google ADA Toolkit, and there are resources that are going to help expand your horizons far beyond the horizons of probably 85 or 90% of IAVM members. And that's the kind of thing that I preach, that we preach at AVSS, that I preach at Venue Management School. There are resources out there, so go look them up. And as you Google an ADA toolkit and find out what you can learn about ADA and how to understand the ADA, etc., watch the screen, watch whatever else comes up. You're gonna find resources that are just innumerable that you can tap into. And it might be, I always encourage my staff back at the Nutter Center, when we rotated a manager on duty with about 5 managers on relatively small, mundane events, and I don't want to demean anybody by saying women's basketball or baton twirling or something like that. But when you're on duty and you really have nothing to do, sit at your laptop, even sit out in the building at your laptop so you can see what's going on, and just play 50 questions with Google and see what you can get into. And all of that's going to expand your horizons.
Great. Mike, anything follow-up?
No, thank you, John.
Awesome. I want to take a last moment here. First of all, thank everybody for attending today. I've been getting some feedback that the live streaming is being a little difficult at the moment, but hopefully everyone who's waiting patiently to watch this will be able to do so shortly. John, we just recently got an email from IAVM, and this kind of connects on a lot of the themes that we've been hearing during this call for Call for Volunteers, the annual Call for Volunteers email. I was wondering if you could just talk about that process and why it's important for folks of all tenure to put their hat in the ring.
Absolutely, I'd love to. And there for a while, I called myself the king of the volunteers. I was on probably at one point 6 different committees. It is crucial, and I believe very strongly that it is so very important to give back to the industry. From my standpoint, the industry has been incredibly good to me. I did work my way through the ranks and become chairman of the board, and I have chaired probably virtually every committee that's out there at some point, with the exception of the Board of Regents. That's one that's eluding me, but maybe that's coming. We, the association, rely on volunteer labor. We rely on volunteers, the expertise they bring to the table, you all bring to the table. Not only the expertise that you bring to the table, but the expertise that you will gain from that interaction with your peers and or veterans of the association. And I can speak to one very close to a member here, Scott Halgren, currently in Ottumwa, was a very young, very aggressive person when he jumped on the convention center committee and grew tremendously. So it's going to give you personal growth. It's going to expand your network of industry professionals for when you do have an issue, you do have a problem, you do need advice, or you do need a job. Frankly, a lot of the jobs in the industry never hit the airwaves, never hit the blogs, never hit the job postings. A lot of the jobs in the industry are word of mouth, and we as VenuWorks, very frankly, Tammy Kuhlbeck and I are on the faculty at Venue Management School. We are searching our next young executives out of that pool of people. We watch the classes. I watch the classes at AVSS all the time. I watch for people at the national conferences, the region conferences, the venue-specific conferences, for the people that are involved, the people that show the initiative. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Show the initiative to better themselves, because when a young professional or middle-aged management somebody is engaged enough to go out and seek to be better, that tells me I'm looking to hire somebody that they've got the initiative that's going to come along with them rather than for management with them. So the networking piece is huge. The ability to gain knowledge is huge, and there are so many ways that you can benefit. So the call for volunteers is out there. I believe it goes for about another month, Mac. I think I just this morning. About another month. Throw your hat in the ring. If you don't get this go around, don't get discouraged. Keep your name out there. If you don't get chosen and you have some specific vein that you'd really love to work in, find out who the new committee chair is and reach out and say, hey, I'd like to volunteer. A lot of the committees, a lot of the volunteer efforts in IAVM do have some ad hoc members that can come along and gain some experience, but keep throwing your name in. You're not going to get chosen for your best, most favorite committee right away, maybe you will, but don't get discouraged, because the name of the game is interaction. From my view, the name of the game is to give back to the industry that is being very good to me, and there is no way I can appreciate that anymore, other than having had a 50-year career that probably have only had maybe three really bad days in 50 years, and I'm one that likes to play the percentages. If you reduce that to percentages, I don't think you'll find that in any other industry, that out of 50 years you only have 3 bad days. And you know what? Those days always end, so there's always tomorrow.
Well, I do want to also add for those that are on current committees now, we still, IAVM is still asking for you to go ahead and re-up each year. So if you find yourself not on a committee come July or August, that's why. Make sure you re-up every year. But John, I could not have asked you to wrap up on a better note. I think you totally encapsulated why all of us that have been giving back to IAVM really are here. To give back all the opportunities that have been afforded us. And so with that said, thank you for taking the time to talk to all of us. Panelists, thank you very much for being here as well. John, any last comments?
Yeah, I think I've rambled quite a bit, and I am the king of rambling too. But I just, to everybody that ever watches this, my door is open. Send me an email. Yeah, I am a firm believer in returning every email the same day that I get them, even if I can't respond appropriately. You will get a response saying that I'll get back with you in a day or two, and I do. And I am open for advice. I am open for counsel. I am open for phone calls anytime anybody has a question, comment, concern, needs a little bit of direction on how to go with this or that. My door is always open.
John, thank you very much. This has been a great first attempt at this, and I think we've pulled it off with moxie and expertise. We'll work on all the bugs that we've had so far, and for the next one, which will be somewhere in the range of April, and we'll be talking about the next facility manager's trend, which is tech and current trends in the industry. So be on the lookout for our next guest and our next date, and hopefully this will incentivize those of you that aren't in the room with us now to try to get in and bring your questions. Again, my name is Matt Campbell. I'm the Director of Client Services at Baltimore Convention Center and the Young Professionals Committee Chair. I appreciate all of your time, and hopefully you have a safe and profitable winter. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.